Hello. And could we establish a quorum, please?
Okay, John Kinney.
Yeah, so before doing the roll call, if you could answer here or present.
Okay, we've got somebody that's not muted. With a bit of noise. John Kinney.
He's muted.
Everybody.
As Liz is talking.
Okay, I think that was caller 3. Whoever is caller 3, I guess, needs to be careful.
Yes, I think so.
John Kinney? Okay, I muted everyone, and Debbie, are you able to get show John how to unmute and mute his computer?
Yes.
Okay, let's try the roll again. John Kinney,
Present.
Brad Hoot,
Present.
Betsy Hester, Betsy, you got your mute button handy there? Unmute, there you go.
Here. Yeah.
Okay, Davis Lamb,
Present.
Robbie Adams,
Here.
Liz McLaurin,
Present.
Andy Reese, Andy, we didn't get anything from you. Okay, do we want to go to our vice chair?
All right, this is Mr. Kinney. The roll call, we got a majority at present, I think. We want to move on to the first item.
I think we need.
Mr. Kinney, this is Christy Ransom. We need a motion to declare the meeting a necessity due to the COVID-19 crisis.
All right, do I hear a motion that the meeting?
So moved.
How about a second? Motion been made and second. All in favor, you want to call the roll again, Floyd?
Yes, sir. Brad Hoot,
Yes.
Betsy Hester,
Yes.
Davis Lamb,
Yes.
Robbie Adams,
Yes.
Liz McLaurin,
Yes. Yes.
Andy Reese, John Kinney.
Yes,
Motion passes.
the motion passes. All right, move to first item and is approve the minutes of the last meeting on March the 24th, 2021. Do I hear any motion or additions or improvements on the meetings?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
call. Brad Hoop,
Yes.
Betsy Hester,
Yes.
David Stam,
Yes.
Robbie Adams,
Yes.
Liz McLaurin,
Yes.
Andy Reese.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now. And
Wow.
John,
Yes.
all right. Do we want to switch back to our regular chair, Christie? Is that,
That's fine. We can do that.
okay?
All right, sorry, guys. So we adopted the minutes, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4, the public hearing. Staff, would you read the request?
Sure, thank you. This is Michael. Item 2, Brian Hamilton with Nashville Civil LLC on behalf of Bobby Locke is requesting a waiver of Section 4 of the Williamson County Stormwater Management Regulations regarding the waterway natural area for property located at 4133 Old Hillsborough Road. Leapers Fort runs along the back of the property and has a waterway natural area of 100 feet because the tributary area is approximately 24 square miles. The applicant is proposing to place a parking lot constructed from pervious pavement within the WENA to service local shops and restaurants in the Leapers Fork area. The parking lot will be about 45 feet from the top of bank at its closest point, and the length of the parking lot within the WENA will be about 225 feet. The approximate area of parking lot surface within the WENA will be around 9,700 square feet. Per Section 4 of the Stormwater Regulations, parking lots are not a permitted use within the waterway natural area. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the Stormwater Regulations to allow a parking lot within the waterway natural area.
Would the applicant like to provide a presentation for us?
Brian, are you on the call? I see you're muted. We
Brian
send a-
Hamilton, are you able to present?
Hey Floyd, this is Tim Wilson. I am actually working with Brian on this. I have the property there under contract. And I thought Brian was I thought Brian was on this call this morning. I thought he was going to present, but we have my company has this property under contract to purchase, contingent on the ability to put in a parking lot here. I'm happy to answer any questions related to that if you have any. As far as the engineering side of it, I would have to defer to Brian on any of that.
Yeah, we would love to get Brian on here because I'm sure we have some engineering questions. I don't know if he can call in or we need to defer this meeting till next month.
I would hate to defer this another month just because it's taking so long to get this on the calendar. I'm not sure where Brian is. Y'all have another item we could y'all can move on to next, and then I can circle up. Brian is calling me right now, Floyd. Let me. Y'all have another item y'all could you could go to, and then we could bring this back up at the end.
No, this is the only item we have, and I mean, I'm showing him on my screen as being on the call, but he's
calling me right now. Floyd, hold on 1 second.
Perhaps he could call into the meeting by phone.
Hey, Floyd, that was Brian calling me. He said he was having trouble with his mic. He said it was working earlier. Now it's not. He's going to try to call back in right now.
Okay.
Would it make sense to put that call-in number in the chat so that he can see that on his screen, and that might give him the right prompts for calling in?
Yeah, I don't know why he's having difficulties.
Yeah, Davis, we have the chat, Davis, because we don't want any ex parte communications.
I understand. I was just trying to make it easy to get that number to him, that's all.
I got you. Well, he had the invitation. I mean, he should have the number.
Oh, good, okay, okay.
He sent me the invitation, so he forwarded it to me, so I'm assuming he's got it.
It showed a new caller has arrived. If you're the new caller, unmute yourself and let's take a run at it.
Ron, are you on? Floyd, I apologize. I don't want to take any more of the committee's time. So if you want, we could, I guess we just need to go ahead and defer to next month. If that's okay with y'all.
We can definitely do that. I think we do have another item that's already been submitted for next month. So unless you want to, give some of the background and set this thing up, maybe he can get it figured out in the next minute or so. But
yeah, I mean, again, it's, we're our company, PMC, we've been in business, 30 years and 28 years in the Middle Tennessee area. We operate in about 60 markets around the country. We put this Mr. Locke originally, his daughter-in-law originally called us to manage this for parking. There were so many people coming into the Weepers Fork area and parking on this already. So they asked us if we'd take it over and manage it. And anyway, we ended up putting it under contract, contingent on being able to operate it as a parking lot. We realized it was I believe it's in the floodway. So we brought in Brian to do the design for us. Our original design called for about 48 spaces. We cut that back based on the survey we got back to try to, for various reasons. As far as the engineering specs and so forth, I'd have to defer to Brian on all that, Floyd. I don't have that is not my area of expertise.
Right. Do any of the board members have questions that perhaps Michael or Floyd could answer? And we'll give Brian another couple seconds while we clarify. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some.
Okay,
Go ahead,
you got the floor.
Did somebody else say they had some?
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
All right. One of the things I'd like to know is the new parking lot going to be bigger than the old one? Is it going to be bigger or the same size, or is there going to be any of the old parking lot left showing after we get done here?
Well, so Brad, that's a great question. The existing, there's existing old asphalt and some concrete, pre-existing concrete pads, I believe, on this site. The new footprint that we're proposing will be considerably smaller than what is already there. And, hey, Floyd, Brian just texted me and said he needed to be unmuted on the call. I don't know who has controls of the call, but if somebody could unmute him.
yeah, to my knowledge, I can mute everyone, but then they are immediately able to unmute themselves. If I look at him, if he is caller number 5, I believe.
Testing this. Okay, I've got audio now.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So Brian, I'm
I
sure you
tested
heard,
it.
I'm sure you heard Brad asking about the existing footprint versus the new proposed footprint on the parking. I was explaining to them that I thought the new parking footprint was going to be considerably smaller than what the existing footprint is there now.
So the existing,
Let's go back and let the engineer of record give us an overview presentation of the site that may answer some of our questions, and then we'll open the floor for questions if that's okay.
thank you.
So go ahead.
The existing parking is just old asphalt and just a muddy area. So when it floods or when it rains, there's considerable runoff into Leopardsport with the muddy area and the non-pervious aspect of the parking. So the proposed changes would be permeable pavement, pervious, and they'd allow more infiltration of the stormwater. And we would, of course, abide by the LID code or regulation. And it would have better conditions after a flood, I guess.
Okay, are there questions then for the engineer of record or the owner, potential owner? So Brad, go ahead with your question again.
My question was, is the new parking lot larger or smaller than what's there now? And if it's smaller, what provisions going to be made for any of the dirt and parts of the old parking lot that might still be exposed?
Well, Brian, I'll take this and feel free to jump in. But Brad, the existing asphalt will be removed. I believe will be removed from the site. The new pervious pavement that Brian was talking about will be poured back in. We don't plan on removing any dirt from the site. We'll add some additional landscape buffers in as well. But there's not going to be any existing fill taken out or brought into the site, to the best of my knowledge. Correct, Brian?
Correct. Working
you're
on
just
existing grade.
You're just going to like scarify what's there?
Correct.
Yes. No big grading.
So you're putting a foot of combined gravel and pervious concrete. Are you putting that on top of the current ground level and then raising the ground effectively a foot? What's your plan there?
Brian?
Yeah, so I guess in Scarify, if you're talking about that, to get the area defined, to put in gravel base. But in general, no grading to change the slope.
Yeah, this is Floyd. At the point, if you should so choose to grant the encroachment waiver, they would have to submit a site plan with all the detailed engineering, and because it's in the floodplain, they would have to balance the cut and fill. So they would have to basically undercut. If it's going to take them a foot, if they're putting a foot of additional material, they're going to have to undercut that and haul it off site. And then their final grade of their parking lot, whatever they do to construct the parking lot, they'll have to show that the cut and fill in the floodplain balances.
Can you put the elevation drawing back up? Okay. Any further questions? I've got a few, but I want to give everybody else a chance to go for it.
So this is Brad again. So the original grade or the grade where we have it now will be where your filter fabric's gonna go, sorta?
We're not going to pull in or fill the entire parking lot. So there'd be some cut and then the materials on top. It just what Floyd was talking about.
I just
Balance.
wanna understand that any water that gets through this pervious concrete is gonna be able to get somewhere and won't run into that, what's there now that I guess is very pervious. So that, you got that
No.
accommodated, I guess.
Correct. We would not put this on top of that asphalt parking.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other follow-on to Brad's question or additional questions?
Yes, this is Mr. Kenny. On your application, it shows in the floodplain of the 500-year floodplain. And this might need to be to Scott, but is that not in the 100-year floodplain too? This area?
Yeah, this is Floyd, but the entire site is in the 100-year floodplain, and then the floodway, they can't encroach in the floodway, so they're showing you a dashed floodway line that's just below the parking lot. So they cannot do any encroachment within that floodway area, or else they would have to do a detailed HECRAS analysis, no rise, and submit a, conditional letter of map revision to FEMA, and that would be a very intense process. But so they're proposing to stay out of that. They'll have to adjust. I guess they're showing the one of the radiuses of the driveway entrance looks like it's maybe in the floodway, and so that would need to be adjusted out. But they would be building this in the 100-year flood plain, which is why they would have to balance the cut and fill and certify that they were not impacting 100-year flood elevations.
Also, this concrete you're putting down and everything, once that water gets over that and the mud gets on it, that pretty well stops that up from letting water through it anymore, wouldn't it?
There's maintenance procedure for this pervious pavement.
You're cutting into the hill. Is the hill above the parking lot going to drain across the parking lot?
I guess currently it does. We could take some swells around and prevent that.
I agree with Mr. Kenny. I have never seen pervious concrete not clog unless extraordinary measures were taken so that only the water that falls on it, and the cars that enter it don't track mud onto it. I'm highly skeptical that this will be anything but pavement 2 years out. You can go to the Metro Center where people go and get their permits and look at the pervious asphalt there, and it is 100% clogged. So they put in pavers, and those are mostly clogged with cigarette butts now. So it just, the Walmart is clogged. I just haven't seen this work around here because the level of effort, vacuum-based sweeping is necessary to keep it open. And I don't see that happening in Leapers Fork. I honestly just don't see, I don't see the possibility of this working.
We've had a lot of experience putting in pervious pavement, working with pervious pavement, and you're right, it will clog up if you don't take preventive measures to keep that from happening. And you can't vacuum it really, but you can pressure wash it, which we do on our parking lots. You have to do, on somewhat of a regular basis. You also could, you could put and Brian, you correct me if I'm wrong, you put a little bit of a drain off around the edge of the parking lot to catch the water and channel it back towards the river where the runoff would go, where it is currently, to the best of my knowledge, that any water coming off that hill right now is going right back into the river anyway. But as far as the pervious pavement clogging up, you're exactly right. If you're not doing some type of preventive maintenance on it, that will happen. I can assure you out of Metro Center, they're not doing any type of preventive maintenance on that. But our parking lots where we do operate, we do, and we have a lot of parking lots around the country that do have pervious pavement. They do have to be pressure washed and kept clean, and we do have maintenance people that do that on a regular basis.
So would that be part of the permit, a mandatory maintenance?
That's up to Williamson County. I mean, if they want to put that in the permit, they're more than welcome to. We do it just to keep our parking lots up and keep them nice in appearance, so they're inviting for people to park on them. I've never seen it written into a permit, but if Williamson County chooses to do so, we're happy to abide by it. We're gonna maintain them regardless whether it's in a permit or not.
Andy, this is Floyd. Like I said, if you choose to allow if the board chooses to allow the waiver, they have to submit a site plan to get the use approved, and they have to provide the engineering specifications and design. And so any BMPs that would be part of that, they would have to sign a maintenance agreement and record a maintenance agreement with the county in order to, assure that they're going to maintain that.
All right. Well, let's go back. Any other questions from any other board members on this? I have a couple more, but I want to let others. I know, Liz, you're pretty interested in this one too.
Is that echoing for everybody?
Yeah, Liz, you might try turning your volume down on either your speaker or your mic.
When she gets through, I have another question.
Is that better?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see, oops, sorry.
Liz, you're still echoing. Why don't you work on that? Brad, did you have another question?
I
Yes,
think
I
it
do.
may be because she's got both the web and the phone.
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Brad Hoot, go ahead.
All right. With regard to this permeability and clogging and such, are we going to have sheet flow here anyway? Even if the thing weren't terribly permeable, wouldn't it still be better than what's there now, or not? Are y'all going for some sheet flow action here also?
No, sir. No sheet flow would be part of this. The only sheet flow would be controlled swells. Well, that's not enough sheet flow. But the parking area should allow for the infiltration. And I think it would be an overall improvement for this land.
Why did you decide to go with permeable concrete rather than just grade it out for sheet flow?
Just thought this was a better application for this lot and the flooding conditions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Christy Ransom. For those of you, especially those who aren't on camera, if you could please identify yourself before you speak, that would make the record a lot more clear and will make it easier for the minutes to be prepared. Thanks.
All right, Brad Hoot, you still have the floor. Do you?
Okay, I have another question. How do you get the water under the driveway there? Does it go over it, or got a culvert, or am I missing something?
So you're not missing anything. This is Brian Hamilton. The the proposed grading is not really shown because we were applying this at grade. This being a preliminary, but after the discussion about the depth of the gravel and the pervious, we talked about the cut and fill with Floyd, and we talked about not allowing that hill to come across the parking. So I'm envisioning now swell taking the hill water across and a small pipe going across that entrance and on the other side.
Okay.
Liz, do you want to try again? Liz McLaren. All right, let's wait just a minute on her. Anyone else with questions?
Yes, this is Mr. Kenny. On the drawing that I have showing the parking spots, is the overhead electric line running down there showing the pole in the fourth and fifth parking spot. Is that pole going to be moved out of that area? And on the upper end, in 13, 14, 15 space, showing 2 trees growing there. Them trees going to be taken out.
Yes, the trees would be taken out. That overhead line is at its overhead, and that pole comes down real close to the floodway there.
I think, and Floyd explained this to me before the meeting, this is a very preliminary drawing to establish whether it's even worthwhile to go forward or not. So we have lots of questions about this drawing because there seems to be lots of inconsistencies in it. And I'm not sure, we can certainly point those out. I just wanted all of us to be aware that that this is sort of a concept, preliminary concept, and if we should point these things out that bother us, just understand that we're kind of putting the engineer on the spot because he did a kind of a concept drawing. But anyway, so let's keep going with our questions, but just so we all kind of get that idea as well. Any other questions?
Yes, so thank you. I hope you can hear me now. This is Liz McLaurin. I'm back on by phone.
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. I apologize for my internet problems this morning. So I am very familiar with this area, obviously, but I am concerned about the slope from the road down to the parking. And can you tell me, I'm having a little bit of a hard time looking on this plan, how you plan to treat that, and then how you plan to treat, I noticed you have some meandering channel within riprap, you have some treatment there, but how are you going to treat the areas both above and below the parking areas?
So we were just talking just a minute ago about having some swells to take the water from the hill around the parking area. So currently, anything that falls from the road, it just runs straight down all the way to Leapers Fork. So we think this application would actually help the conditions on site. And although it's not shown on the preliminary plan, there'd be a pipe that went across the entrance there to take it to the water quality measures. The swell could be incorporated as some type of water quality swell, possibly.
And it will just remain the slope with the some of the measures you're describing, but the slope will remain grass. Will there
Correct.
be any stabilization of that grass in any way, or is it? I mean, it will just be grass, and that will be maintained as well.
Yes, it's a stable slope right now. If we
Okay.
do not disturb it, then I don't know that it needs, application.
Okay. That was my question.
Thank you. Anyone else have, and if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, let me ask a couple more and then I'll be quiet.
Mr. Hoot,
Uh,
you have the floor.
Brian, are you a PE and or registered landscape surveyor, and will you be overseeing this work as it to completion?
This is Brian. Yes, I am a professional engineer, and I could see this from start to finish.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Hoot?
I think I'm done for now.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
You could mute yourself. Yes.
Davis Lamb, and I don't have a specific question necessarily. And I think Liz hit on this too. One of the things that, as this moves forward, understanding the edge along the floodway and how that's being treated, and whatever measures can be taken to, protect as much as possible kind of that fringe or that edge. It does look like this has got the potential to maybe improve the conditions that are out there, but especially if we can protect that edge, that would be something. I don't have a specific question, but that's where my concern is how do we protect that edge? So just wanted to interject that.
Sure.
What edge is that?
Just hang on, Brad. Yes, Mr. Lamb, anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else want to add comments to that statement?
Yeah, Davis, what edge are you talking about?
I'm talking about literally along the floodway. So where parking places 1 through 15, there's a couple of places where they've shown some channel and riprap and some plantings, but that's where I was trying to figure out, are there some more plantings or things we can do there to help kind of protect along that edge before the water, gets into the actual floodway.
You're worried about it washing away?
Part of it is stabilization, and part of it is what can be done to clean any water that's sheet flowing across that area, especially if there's concern that it gets clogged over time.
I would highly agree with that. Not that I don't think there's good intention of keeping the permeable pavement operable, but if it becomes inoperable, even partially, then we are directly discharging parking lot water into the stream with no cleaning, no pollution removal whatsoever. Leapers Fork wouldn't want that. Williamson County wouldn't want that. And I highly recommend either a backup plan that can be mandated, or a backup constructed plan that catches that water. Secondly, your cross section for the permeable pavement shows compacted fill. Go back to the cross section, would you, Floyd or Michael? Shows compacted base material, filter fabric, and then 12 inches of pervious concrete and whatever. That design does not allow for infiltration. That design allows for containment within the base and the concrete, but I don't see where that containment exits the parking lot. So basically you're creating, a parking lot swamp with no exit unless you've got some exit on the downstream side. This design just seems, and I know it's preliminary, but there's some fails on this design that concern me considerably. And I have lots of experience with permeable concrete around the country. So I have some big concerns about how this is set up right now. And I share Davis Lamb's concern that there has to be a fail-safe mechanism between the parking lot and the stream that will provide significant water quality treatment should anything fail. I'm just concerned, unless you change the design of the parking lot. And I know you probably have a good record of pressure washing, and honestly, all of the data shows pressure washing is the second best treatment, that vacuum sweeping is better than pressure washing. Pressure washing actually forces a lot of material down into the interstitial spaces in the concrete. It blows some out, but it also forces some down. So I get all that. That creek is a pretty precious creek in Williamson County. Of course, Leapers Fork is a great location. And I, as someone who's almost been hit 3 or 4 times walking along the edge of the road to get to a restaurant, I'm a huge fan of additional parking in Leapers Fork. I just want to make sure it's done right.
So Andy, if I could, this is Tim Wilson. If I could jump in for a second, vacuums work great if the mud is dry, if the dirt is dry, and you can actually vacuum it up. And we use vacuum trucks on a regular basis, especially in our parking garages. However, if you get mud in there and it's the mud gets down in there, you cannot vacuum up mud. And to your point, we do pressure wash because that has seemed to work better over the in the past when we were keeping the pervious pavement parking lots clean. As far as the runoff, I mean, there's nothing being done for the runoff that is there now, and you're obviously getting runoff there over the existing old asphalt that is there, and concrete foundations, et cetera, which obviously is going into the stream as well. What we are proposing, and we're happy to change the design. We want to be, accommodating you guys. We're obviously making a significant investment. One, because I as well love Weepers Fork and I love the area, and I come down there, a couple of times a month to have lunch and so forth and bike through there, et cetera. But we're happy to change the design. What we're proposing is certainly a whole lot better than what is currently in there right now. And you're obviously already getting runoff that's going into Weepers Creek right now from the existing, old asphalt, concrete, et cetera, that is there now. So again, I mean, you seem like you have a lot of experience in this. I don't know if you're an engineer, but would love your comments about, what you think how we should change this design to be more accommodating to you guys. Obviously, we've got to get y'all to sign off this before we even get to the next stage for our full design process. But, I want to make sure we're accommodating to y'all so we can get to the next phase. And if we need to change the design, or if you have an idea about what the design change needs to be, we would certainly love to hear that.
And this is Brian. I can talk a little bit about the change of a design. Options. One, this is a minimal design, and it's a preliminary design. This is an idea of permeable paving. Second would be you size the stone under it for the flooding event. So you know what water's coming onto it, and you size the stone accordingly with 40% void spaces for that volume. Two, or third, I guess, you could have an under drain that would sit on top of that filter fabric. The challenge with that is once you do have that drain, then you have to have a place for it to go. And sometimes it's too far underground to daylight, especially in our situation was so flat. But along the floodway, what you were concerned about, I could see some native grasses, or instead of the typical grass that we have in our yard, maybe some heather or some other stuff that's taller, that if anything were to reach that line, the floodway is actually a linear feet from the top of bank. So you can actually stake it out from surveying aspect, and you can build something. The floodplain is associated with an elevation, and it's different, and it's across the street or on the street. But I think we can take measures to take care of your concerns on the floodway.
Sure. Remember, the point is not necessarily flood control. We really don't care about that. The idea of storing water and then discharging water is not helpful because flood control is not an issue. The whole point is water quality from the runoff that is going into the creek. And so pervious pavers, even with rock underneath, provide almost no treatment except for kind of the gross solids. And so, my point is we're not necessarily looking for storage of the water. I know that there's a requirement, a detention requirement that may not be waived depending on timing of the creek and that sort of a thing. But the concern is water quality, and I don't see a way to treat. To me, the cheapest way to treat water quality here is you've got a fairly lengthy grassy area. I'm actually looking at it on Google Earth Street View, so I'm looking at now, and you've got a significant grassy area that could be turned into a great sheet flow filter if you had flow spreaders on the downstream side of the parking lot, but the upstream side of the grass area that would cause sheet flow for the many storms that would maximize the pollution. The big storms sort of they cause flooding, but their pollution is so put in with the water that it's not as intense. But it's the many small storms that cause that runoff from the parking lot. So again, just a thought on your design and what you're trying to accomplish with the design. Big fan of good parking in Leapers Fork, but if we can keep the sheet flow or the flow off the parking lot from getting to the stream in any concentrated way until it's been treated with a best management practice that would actually remove significant pollution. That would be my concern. Your design on it, I'm always hesitant to suggest designs in case they don't work, but your design on it. But my concern is that is the focus of this, not necessarily flood storage. So that would just be my thought on it. Any other questions?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Liz McLaurin.
Yes.
I will also, when we talk about pollution as the primary concern, obviously that's what we're talking about. But living here, I was surprised to hear that the footprint of this parking area is actually smaller than the current footprint, because I have never seen 31 cars parked there. And so the number of vehicles that would be parked in a place, to me, could impact the amount of pollution that could end up in the creek. I see 10 or 15 at a time, and I realize you have to think about there's some math here about revenue, I know, but I am a fan of good parking in Leapers Fork as well. Obviously, I worry every time I drive through that I'm going to hit somebody, but and I do agree that that parking area improved would be a really great thing for Leapers Fork, meaning the creek, but and the community. I was surprised, and that's just a note. I was surprised by the number of parking you'll be able to fit in something that's actually smaller than current footprint. And so maybe if you could sort of explain that is a parking guy, Tim. I mean, is it that because there are no marked spots that this will be? There are currently no marked spots, so it's not well organized. Is that what it is? But also, I just have questions about the number of vehicles and the pollution impact.
Sure. Hey, Liz, this is Tim Wilson. So when I believe it was Brad was asking about the current footprint versus what we were proposing here, when I was referring to the current footprint, I was meaning the overall flat area of the lot itself, which includes all the floodway area. This actual 31 spots we're proposing is much smaller than what were it not in a floodway, what we could actually put in there. I think we originally, before we brought it to you guys, we had this drawn out with 48 spots on it. But to your point, yes, anytime you have an open area that is not, fully paved and marked out with lines, versus what is when you have an area that is marked, your capture rate is much higher, obviously, when you actually have marked spaces and people have designated areas to park in. Yeah, and you're right. You're exactly right. It is a math, it is a math equation at the end of the day. At 48 spaces, the math looked pretty good on this parking lot. Then we got back to survey and realized we couldn't put that many in and had to cut it back to 31. We're cutting, basically a quarter of our spaces out at that point. We have to really start looking at the math. And if we get much more below 31, our payback on our investment and so forth would be so far out, stretched so far out, it starts getting to be really a point of diminishing return, which is not worth it to go forth with the investment. 15 spots would not work. 25 probably would. Like you said, it's a math equation at the end of the day. But I do think this, as far as the number of spaces fits in, and Brian could speak to this, but as far as the number of spaces we proposed here does, I believe, fit in with the guidelines, and it's, within the outside of the floodway area here. So I hope that answers your question. If not, I'm happy to explain it more, but like I said, we've been doing this, I've been doing this a long time. We put in a lot of parking lots. We're very, we're pretty good at what we're doing. And we also want to be good partners with the communities we operate in. We want to have nice signage out that goes with the area. We want to maintain the ambiance of the area. We don't want something to look trashy. And I can promise you what we are proposing to put in will look much better than what is in there right now. So anyway, yeah, hope that helps. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Tim. I think Tim pointed on this, but it's a very dysfunctional parking area now. And so people pull in and they just don't park correctly. And so it creates this place where somebody else pulling in cannot back up and turn around and leave. So I think that's why you see 10 cars maybe.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, let me make another comment. And this is not my area of expertise, but it looks to me, and I'd like to hear from both sides because we got a little bit of disagreement going maybe, or at least some questions. It looks to me like this is a real substantial improvement over what's there now, even if it were just sheet flow, it looks like it would be better than what's there now. And I'd like to hear maybe more on that. I think I don't want to miss a chance to make an improvement in this area, but I don't want to do something that makes things worse either. It looks like it is an improvement maybe, but maybe I could hear from somebody who doesn't think that this is an improvement for whatever reason. And I like the comments of the things that we might add to it to make it even better. But as a person who's not an expert on this, I'm hearing two different opinions. And the one that seems to stick in my mind the most is, even as it is, this is an improvement over what's there now. And so I guess I'd like to hear a little more on that maybe.
Any response to Mr. Hoot? Yeah, Christy, were you gonna? We need to open the floor for public as well here in a minute. We kind of jumped down to the board discussion. Any other questions for the presenter? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Let's open up the floor now for any comments from the public. Is there anyone on the call from the public who'd like to give a comment? Hearing none, let's close the public hearing. Let's return now to a discussion among the board members, and I think if we get stuck, we could ask another question. So back to Brad Hoot's question about if you feel that you have a concern about this, how would you answer Brad with that? Liz or Davis, anybody else? Mr. Kinney, Betsy? Any thoughts about that would add a concern to Brad's, this is an improvement over what's there point?
This is Liz, and I would agree that this is an improvement over what is there, but listening to you, Mr. Chairman, as someone who does this kind of work all over the place, I defer to your expertise about whether or not the improvement can be improved upon. It certainly does. It's a mess down there right now, and I would love to see it cleaned up. And I think there could be some, improvements related to discharge into the creek. But so I guess I think that it is an improvement, but perhaps based on what I'm hearing from Mr. Lamb and from you, Mr. Chairman, that we could improve on the improvements by some changing in the current plan.
Thank you. Any other comments before we call for a motion?
Yes, Mr. Kinney. I'm sure it'd be an improvement, but on the other hand, we have never allowed this in a floodplain, and this may set up a precedence for future people wanting to put a parking lot in floodplains. And this also is just a preliminary drawing, and I think we need a more permanent and some of these questions answered in a better way than what it's being answered right now. So if we patch it now, the next, what they bring back to it may not be as what we want.
That's kind of what I was getting at. What are the objections or the support that are make a difference here? Andy, you seem to have some thoughts on that. And I'd like to hear maybe again from the developer or the engineer as to what extent this is an improvement or what else we could do to make it more of an improvement. I'm a little in the dark on it. Looks like just an improvement to me, but that's a simplistic view.
It certainly is an improvement in the ability to use the property for parking. There's no question it's an improvement there. It, from a water quality standpoint, it kind of goes back and forth. Is the mud polluted? Is it more polluted than the parking lot runoff would be? Blah, blah. It seems like what I hear us saying is that a parking lot is a good idea there, and a very well designed, from a water quality stream protection standpoint, parking lot would feel effective to us, would feel acceptable, but we're not convinced that this design provides that. Is that a good summary of what I'm hearing us say?
If I could, this is Floyd. I mean, it sounds like obviously you all want more information, and I think the issue here was that basically we don't want something submitted to the planning department as a site plan or as a subdivision plan if it requires a waiver from the board. And I understand the situation you're in here. You don't have, I don't think, enough information to make you all comfortable. But if we could, if the applicant is willing to go ahead and spend the money on engineering and the site plan, and if you all would direct them to be able to go ahead and submit that site plan formally with the formal design, and then come back to you to see something that could be approved by both the planning department and the engineering department, because they do require, detention. That's why they have to have some storage under the pervious paving. But to your point, they also need to address water quality, and Michael would be looking at that submittal, and it may require something like a water quality unit. And I don't know if that water quality unit, just like we ran into in Stevens Valley, is something that, would be in line with our ordinance and would require a waiver from you all as well. But does that sound like a good game plan if they go and get design done, submit the site plan, and we bring that back to you next month?
Is that acceptable to the presenter?
This is Brian. I will defer to Tim Wilson on that.
I'm sorry, Brian, could you repeat that?
I was just going to defer to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is Tim. Yeah, Andy, we're happy to, I'm happy to get with Brian and work on the design some more and see if we can't accommodate what y'all are looking for here. I need to get with Brian and kind of see what, obviously there's always a cost component to things and see what the cost is going to be. We've already invested a pretty substantial amount of money in this already, trying to get it to where we are right now. I certainly don't want to stop and go back. I think everybody's point here is made. One, it does add parking in the Leapers Fork area, which is much needed. And it also, you're removing, in my opinion, what is kind of an eyesore there. You have an old shed that is kind of back in the weeds there on this parcel. You have a lot of old concrete and asphalt that's on this lot. It would clean up the entire lot and have some nice landscape buffers around it. But I'll need to get an estimate on Brian what the additional engineering drawings are going to cost and run it by my partners and make sure we're all on board. But I think the tentative plan would be to move ahead and come back to you guys at next month's meeting, if that's acceptable.
So is there a motion that could be stated to that effect? And let me just restate my thinking. So my thinking is, we think parking's not a bad idea. We're certainly would grant a waiver for a well-designed parking area. We are a little concerned about the design, but understand that it's a preliminary design and therefore want to give latitude to kind of think things through a little bit. My only question is whether they need to come back to us or the standard permitting process that Floyd and Michael enforce would take care of all of those requirements. Is there a need to come back to us or not? If those things would take care of it substantially, and I'm pleading ignorance on that. So Floyd, Michael, any comment on whether you feel like coming back to us would be a good idea, or would be sort of superfluous at this point? Any thoughts on that?
Mr. Chairman, this is Christy Ransom. From a procedural standpoint, and then I'll let Floyd and Michael chime in on the engineering aspects of it. But from a procedural standpoint, there's a level of discretion that would be involved here that's really more appropriate at the board level than at the staff level.
Got it.
I was also going to offer is if you all choose to defer it to next month, then it's in the applicant's court to determine whether they want to in fact come back with any changes, as opposed to if you all choose to deny this waiver, not that that's what you're talking about, then they can come back for a year, because it would be substantially the same application unless you all took an action to allow them to come back, which would add a whole nother month. So a deferral will get them back next month and then allow them to address the application however they wish, given the comments that you all have received.
Okay. Right.
I mean,
that sounds like the best. Thank you. I appreciate that. Keep us legal. That sounds like to me. So do I have a motion for that deferral from someone then?
Yes, Mr. Kenny, I make a motion we defer it the next month.
Do I have a
Liz
second?
McLaurin. I second. Liz McLaurin.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there discussion about what that motion actually would imply when they come back next month? Is the understanding that they consider our comments and their own, they recognize some things that need to change. It's worth the investment to bring this back to the board with those changes made, with the considerations. Is that's the motion then?
Mr. Chairman, it's Michael Scott here. Hey, I was just going to say, you had asked a minute ago about our review. When I look at these things, just like we did with Stevens Valley, we're either using Metro's manual or the state's manual, whatever methodology, and we go through that, part by part. We're going to be looking at drainage area. We're going to be looking or external drainage area, we're going to be looking at, just from the water quality stuff, we're going to be looking at, where's the water table? There's probably going to need to be an under drain. Where's that going to be? There's so many different things we look at. And if even one of those can't be met, that in and of itself would basically, like Stevens Valley, the external drainage area couldn't be met. So that required a waiver just in and of itself. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but, I would like to see the LID kind of, water quality stuff be met with the design criteria to even know if it can be met under LID, or if there's a component that, would require a waiver.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Davis Lamb, and again, I guess kind of an observation, and this is in keeping with the motion, I think, and with the general conversation. I think, or I'm looking at my responsibility on this board is whether or not it's appropriate to allow an encroachment into the water, the buffer that's here. And if this were a parking lot that we were putting in the middle of a field, unrelated to anything else going around it, I think it would be an easy no answer. But there are a lot of reasons why this makes sense with where it's located, with what's already being used. And so to me, the direction to the applicants are, there is a willingness, this board member has a willingness to entertain a waiver with the idea that this is an area where parking is going to occur anyway. So let's put the emphasis and the energy on how do we do that in a thoughtful manner that protects the existing waterway in the best way possible. So that's what I would just interject, is the willingness to defer. That's what the thought is behind. Let's do this, but let's do it in a thoughtful way that improves the conditions that are out there that are specific to what's going on in that immediate intersection.
Right. So that doesn't change the motion, which is deferred till next month. It sort of amplifies what our expectations are. Is that true?
That's my intent. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Floyd. I just have one thing that, and maybe Christy can help me on this, but would it be the board's desire that if they choose, they can still formally submit a site plan to the planning department and have that in process while they're also, giving us the engineering information that will come in front of you next month, but they'd be that much further ahead of the game, I guess, when they came to you next month.
That's certainly their choice to move forward with other aspects. That certainly isn't our call, but you can see the members of the board are leaning toward a qualified yes, just with some concerns that we think can be addressed through engineering design. Who made the original motion? Was that Mr. Kenny or?
That was me, Mr. Kenny.
Okay, would you restate your motion?
Oh my.
Or Christy, do you have the motion?
I believe, Mr. Chairman, it was just a motion to defer to next month.
Okay. Do we want to add anything to that motion?
We probably don't. It's up to
Okay.
the applicant to, we don't want to predetermine the outcome next
Yeah.
month because the
Okay,
information
that's good.
would be different.
Okay, the understanding, we all heard the discussion, so we have a first and a second for that motion.
Wait. I don't know how to vote on this because I don't know how much you're asking of them. If they, how much do they have to improve this? Certainly they don't have to make it where the water's potable coming off the parking lot. I'm in the dark on what we're wanting from them. If they aren't though, that's fine.
No, I'm
Brad?
asking.
Right, to have a little bit of clarification.
Wait, just a minute. I'm sorry, if we could, this is Christy Ransom, legal counsel. There is a motion on the floor to defer to next month. The applicant has heard all of this information. They can choose to act on it or not. Pretty simple.
Yeah, Brad, we're only asking them to finish the design so we can understand what they're doing. I don't think we're asking anything extraordinary. We have no authority to do that, nor would we do that. Given that we have a first and a second, can we take a roll call vote on the simple motion of deferring till next month?
John Kinney,
Yes.
Brad Hoot,
Yes.
Betsy Hester,
Yes.
Davis Lamb,
Yes.
Robbie Adams,
Yes.
Liz McLaurin,
Yes.
and Andy Reese.
Yes. So the motion carries. And let's move on to the next agenda item. Is there any other new or old business?
Andy, I'm just, Wilson, I'm sorry, I'm gonna roll off the call, but I just want to say thank y'all for your time today. Look forward to presenting again next month. Thank y'all very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, this is Christy Ransom. Just really quickly, our current electronic authority expires.
None.
I'm sorry? Well, I was just gonna say our current electronic authority expires at midnight tonight. It hasn't been extended yet. I'm hearing that it's not going to be. The governor issued an executive order, I believe yesterday, extending another authority that he passed the same day that he passed our electronic authority. So that further reinforces my thought that he's probably not going to extend our electronic authority, but we'll know for sure after midnight tonight. But the presumption is that we'll go back to live meetings starting in May.
Yes, and so each of us will determine how that works in our personal situation, but the assumption is we will see each other. Bring snacks. Celebration.
And I believe the county commission meeting room is being altered to include some plexiglass dividers between the seats, and there's some precautions that are being taken. So we'll know a little more about that in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you. Any other old or new business? Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Davis Lamb presents such motion.
Second?
Liz McLaurin, second.
I don't think we need a roll call. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.